Hey guys, thank you again for tuning in to another podcast with Beth, owner of Homegrown Fitness. And today's guest, I am welcoming Abby again. I just loved our podcast so much, and she's so knowledgeable in the mental health side of things. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the observation that I've been seeing more about anger and individuals' reactiveness and what is happiness and how do people perceive happiness, because everybody views happiness differently. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to have her reintroduce herself and talk about some upcoming things for the summer and possibilities for you to sign on with her close to home.
All right. Well, thanks for having me again. I'm Dr. Abby Huntley. I'm owner of Oak Ridge Counseling and Consulting, and then the founder of the Wellness Command Post, which the Wellness Command Post does veterans, first responders, and their support people. We do have 2 retreats coming up the rest of the year, the last weekend in June, and then there's another one in August. And it's kind of like an a la carte of everything that the agency has to offer. It's good food, good camaraderie. We get to play with animals and do projects and do a lot of things. It's not like sit around and talk about your feelings with everybody the whole time. Because that's really awkward. So that's a really good opportunity. But of course, we have things all the time. We have like three or four groups a month, different types of groups. We have individual things. Archery 3D League will be starting in June. We have the indoor one wrapping up at the end of this month. So a lot of things that way. And then Oak Ridge, we're just a private practice group for counseling. We have, I think we just rounded 30 different providers over Northeast Wisconsin. We're going to be opening a new office in the city of Oconto Falls on Highland, and then another in Pulaski, just to make it a little bit more convenient for everyone.
Which is super exciting, because I just recently had, over our last podcast, I've been having a few people reach out to her and Oak Ridge Counseling Services to connect and heal, take on another avenue of their wellness. So let's talk about, she's a big archer, and just yesterday was National Archery Day. Did you guys get together as the Wellness Command Post team and shoot? Or I just saw her make that post, and then I'm sitting at the table. I was like, oh, it's Archery Day.
No, we did not. I was hosting Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah, I suppose it was Mother's Day.
Yeah, there was that. But we did, we work closely with HHA USA, and then Center Shop Blue. We are the nonprofit that houses the Center Shop Blue Green Bay outpost. Okay. So we just, over the April 25th weekend, we're down near Madison doing 3 days of archery things with veterans and first responders from all over the country.
Just to connect through archery, I think I love archery. So.
It is really cool. Actually, my husband was just talking about it, just how great it is at these events, the HHA USA events and other archery tournaments throughout the year, that you see the same people that maybe you got randomly partnered with for like a mini competition and you got close to, but you don't see them other than that. But just to see them from across the room or from across the field and be like, hey, and then hugs and pick up right where you left off. Awesome. And everybody there is just really intentional. And I think that's what's so nice is they're not all sitting around on their phones. Yeah. Everyone's very present, not only in their archery, but just in their discussing and conversations with each other. Just it's good camaraderie and good people.
Yeah, I feel like that's missed a lot too, is people having the actual intention of listening and sitting down and understanding and being present with that individual and having a really good conversation. I feel like that's kind of been getting pushed off a little bit more, and that's just because of society today, and society is changing, and but I feel like it's being missed quite a bit.
Absolutely. It's interesting how even talking with some people, when you make good eye contact, they feel so uncomfortable because it's foreign. Students in a classroom, how often is a teacher directly looking in your eyes and talking to you? They're talking to the whole class.
Right.
And then when they talk to their friends, they're maybe on FaceTime, they're snapping, pictures over their shoulder.
Filters.
Yeah, but even as adults, a lot more working from home, so we see less people. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
We have to be really intentional to be present.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of shifts us into the start of our conversation today about anger and how. So I've made an observation, and right away when I noticed it, I messaged Abby and I said, we need to do a podcast about this. And it was right after the recent voting, and all over social media, there was so much frustration and anger and hatred. And politics is completely out of my realm, and I'm not going to get into any discussion about politics, but I see so much of that anger and hatred and reactive personalities in all areas of life, and how that can affect people's relationships, one-on-one, work environment. And, no matter on what side you're on, I know kindness from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we so angry, and why is there so much hatred and reactive just because we don't agree? And that's okay, I feel.
It is okay. I think we've gotten so far away from finding out the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on everything, right?
Yes.
Our conversation personally started because of just what we were noticing post-election and even during the election.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's all of the time. I could feel so convicted about something, and you could have the opposite, right? Like, you could just be like, no, I think those shoes are really ugly. And I'm like, these are the most gorgeous shoes in the world.
Yeah.
But it's not hurting either of us to have opposing views.
Yep.
I think when we talk about some bigger passion things of politics, finances, healthcare, right? Some of those have just more passion and intensity behind them, that passion and that emotion can really blind us. So thinking about anger in itself is a secondary emotion. I call it a shield, because we reactively will get angry, and that is guarding us from the other emotions that we're actually feeling. Because truthfully, it's more acceptable to be like content or meh or angry in our society for whatever strange reason. However, if I'm angry and I take a moment, is it really that I'm scared, fearful, embarrassed, frustrated, isolated? Could be that I feel bitterness. It's something deeper. And it really takes us pausing and thinking about that. And then that can sometimes shift our lens. So, okay, it's not that I'm angry at you for voting this way, or I'm angry that you could be so whatever to make that healthcare decision. It's, I am so scared that something bad is going to happen. I am so worried that if you don't get chemo and radiation, you're going to die soon.
Do you feel like that reactive personality or anger is a learned trait? Do you feel like people are taught that at a young age? I mean, I do like how you express that it's kind of that shield. That's how people are responding, because they're shielding other emotions. Do you feel that's taught, and is it like is that like a taught trait, learned trait? What's your insight on that?
I think it's definitely modeled to us from everything, from a very early age. If you're a parent, like we both are, and your child has wandered off somewhere in public, which always happens. And you're searching and you're searching and you're searching. What is typically the first thing that somebody says when they find their kid? Where were you? Why did you do that? I was so worried. I can't believe you did that. Anger. Not, thank goodness I found you. I was so worried. I love you. let's work together to have better communication when we leave. And you don't have to use those words, but like, it's different when we're reacting with anger. But those are the things that have been modeled from really American society.
Yeah.
If you go to other cultures, we don't see this same anger reactivity. I mean, in some,
right,
but not really in the majority. And those cultures that have a better handle on their emotions and their reactivity have better test scores, have better overall quality of life, have, all of these other things that are really great. I think we have to be intentional about modeling that. And it's not about perfection. I mean, I fly off the handle like anybody else, right? But it's about coming back and being, okay, that was wrong of me.
Yeah. Acknowledging what just happened.
Yep. And then learning from my mistake.
Yeah.
And our culture is, I need it yesterday and I don't have time for these things. So taking that extra 5 seconds to take that deep breath before responding, a lot of people think that's a waste.
Yes. Yep. Going along with we need it this second. I'm just listening in on a podcast and I loved how he expressed like if we don't desire something enough, we're not going to make actions to get there.
Right.
And I think that's getting lost somewhere too in the power of the choice. And, if people, and I'm using, health, wellness, for example, physical strength, ability, and weight loss specifically, like we have the choice to either take the quick fix or take the actions to make it a long-term effect. And I feel people don't have that desire to put in all of that effort and that work and to make these lifestyle changes. So they're making these lifestyle, that choice of that quick fix.
All the Band-Aids.
And all the Band-Aids. Yes. And I think it can go along with mental health too, because again, when you're making these short-term steps to get to where you want that long-term healing, they're missing it when they're taking them short actions.
Oh, absolutely.
And putting the Band-Aids on it.
Absolutely.
Because you learn a lot about yourself along the journey, because not every journey is going to be the same. So, and the path you're going to get steered off into a different path because life changes.
Absolutely.
So I feel that when we take those short steps, we can learn a lot, just mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I feel like that's getting missed because of our society and our culture is fast-paced.
Well, I think, I always use the phrase mental health is a journey, not a destination. But I think that's health and happiness in general. I think there's this belief that to be a happy person, you have to wake up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and happy every day and feel happiness constantly. Or, to be mentally well or to be strong, right? You have to feel those things all of the time. That's so unrealistic. That is not it. If we don't ever feel sadness or grief, how do we truly understand what happiness is? Like, we would have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
And we, as humans, we're supposed to feel all of these things at some point. It's just about not staying in it too long. Like, sit in it, feel it, acknowledge it, and then what do I need to do? Like, where do I want to go, right? And that works with physical health, with internal medicine health, right? It's not just about let's take this supplement, which I do like supplements, but that's not the only thing. We can't just take a prescription and everything's going to be wonderful.
Right. How would you explain happiness? Like, what is happiness in your eyes?
Ooh. I don't know that I've ever thought to describe it. I think it's just that, like, warm joy. And I think happiness to me includes laughter and smiling and probably some peace.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would say the same, like peace with where you're at and I feel like your happiness is ever changing, because we as humans are always looking to evolve and grow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of evolution. We're adapting. So I feel like there comes a time that happiness can kind of turn because we're looking to adapt and change and grow into becoming a better version of ourselves. And the reason why I'm asking that is because in the podcast that I was listening to is that's exactly what you said. It's like it's peace. You're okay with where you're at right now, but again, we're adapting. Humans are meant to evolve, so the happiness is kind of curve off, and we're gonna not search, because if we're always searching for something, I feel like we're never gonna find our happiness. But it's finding peace and joy with where we're at currently today. But we as humans wanting to evolve and grow and become better, we're going to want to learn. And I think that's, coming from the happiness and hiding some of those emotions too, is we need to bring some of the underlying emotions that we've had, not to define who we are today, but to bring them forward and to make them present and help us understand where they're coming from, to allow happiness to come forward and be present.
Absolutely. So many of us just bury things down, especially emotionally. We don't want to deal with it. It's too hard. We feel too vulnerable sharing it. And I think that's why I'm angry or I'm content are more acceptable, because to come to somebody and say, I am so embarrassed.
Yeah. I say that a lot.
I mean, I do too, but I've done a lot of work on myself to get to that. I mean, even when I started my journey as in mental health as a provider,
meet our other guest, Dan.
Dan. I was not great at it. I've probably done the bulk of my good intentional work in the last 5 years, because we do in stages, when you're in your early 20s or 20s in general, you're trying to figure out life, and it's trying to establish this career and get to a certain part. Then in your 30s, right, you're trying to perfect that and kind of tweak that. And I think that's just really important. Going back to the analogy of a journey versus a destination, sure, I can rush it and I can check all the boxes and put on all the Band-Aids and all the duct tape and all the things to get where I want to go. But what shape am I going to be in when I get there? So if we think about doing this as riding in a car, if I don't ever get my oil changes, if I don't rotate my tires, right, if I don't do all these things, I'm probably going to be limping to my spot. And I don't want to be limping to retirement.
Right.
I don't think any of us do.
Yeah.
But if I drive more intentionally and presently of abiding by the speed limit ish, doing that maintenance, I'm probably it's maybe going to take longer.
Yeah.
But what I've learned, what I've seen on my way there will probably help me enjoy where I get a lot better.
Yeah. In your experience, is there a connection between the emotional reactivity and unhealthy lifestyle choices?
For sure. Most people that I even think of myself, the times and days that I'm more reactive, I have less balance.
Okay.
I maybe haven't been eating the best. I haven't been sleeping the best. I have too much on my plate. I am not asking for what I need.
Yeah.
Right? I think a lot of us pile things on our plate, or we just have a lot on our plate and things come to us. But instead of being okay, this will have to wait, or I can do these things, but I really could use help with these things, and advocate for ourselves.
Yeah.
When I know I am much more reactive when
all that is on
everything. But I think in general, people who are reactive don't have a good relationship with themselves internally and find that balance. They are reactive in themselves.
Do you feel like reactive is almost like a protective mode too? like when somebody responds very reactive, almost in defense mode, they're protecting something within, or they're trying to maybe build themselves up to make themselves feel better.
Definitely in some cases. I think that need to be right, to be heard, to be validated. We're not going to go back to childhood now, but a lot of times I when I talk to people, even when they're, in the room with me and we're doing our good work, we're trying to, and they're defensive to me, who always told you were wrong?
Right.
Like, who always, where did this come from? And a lot of times it came back to, unhealthy relationships as a child. That was modeled to them, or they were treated that way, or they were always silenced, or something like that. Like, okay, well, let's look around. Who are your safe people now? What have you built to? Hi, Anne. Hi. And I think that's so important to just take that pause. I think another piece is anxiety.
Yeah.
Anxiety fuels it. I'm going to answer as quickly as possible because I want to get that off my list because, or I need to hurry up and make a decision on this to get to this because I need to make a decision and this needs to keep rolling. Otherwise it's not going to happen.
Right. Do you feel, and I can kind of relate actually to all that high stress too and unhealthy living because I just had a half marathon and 2 weeks leading up to it, we were gone on a family trip, which was great, but it was high tension traveling with kids. Yeah. I mean, if anybody has ever traveled with little kids, it is not easy.
You need a vacation from the vacation.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I love my kids and I enjoyed our trip, but then coming home, we're back into our normal routine. We're leading up to a dance recital, then my half marathon. I needed to go grocery shopping and then work piling on, leading into summer rolls. And so just last week was the first week where I felt like kind of a relief off of my shoulders. And my kids could even tell, my husband could tell like on how tense I was and and I was very reactive. And I even said to my kids, like, I apologize in those moments because I don't want them to think that's a normal behavior.
Right.
And acknowledging that I think is really important because if we don't acknowledge it and we just shove it off to the side, people are going to think it's a normal and it's not. And it's kind of neat to see on how my kids respond after I apologize. They're usually like, it's okay, Mom. We understand that you were stressed. And I said, but it's not okay. It's not okay. This isn't a normal thing. We shouldn't be, I should not have been reacting in this form. So I can definitely relate to it being almost like a shield.
I think when we notice somebody that's very reactive, I feel like I probably take more risks with that at this point because I feel confident that no matter what they give me, I'm going to probably be able to manage.
Yeah.
Because some people will be very offended. But practicing with those close to us, right? Yeah. Like our spouse, our best friend, our siblings, our children, when you see them being reactive, hey, what do you need right now?
Right.
Or even just like, why don't you go do X, Y, and Z because that's good, right? We're going to start redirecting the people that we care about and that we love to those self-care balance things to help them reset because I think, I appreciate when those close to me do that because sometimes when you're in it, you think that walking away is weakness. We think that means and truthfully, sitting and powering through it is the weak part.
It is, and it's hard too.
If that is weakness because we are so not in control of ourselves that we won't step out of the cyclone.
Right.
It shows way more strength to walk away, reset, and come back at it with a balanced mind or a more balanced mind than to sit in it. I mean, I've even called places to like make an appointment and you can just hear the anxiety and the kind of reactiveness from the secretary. And they're just like, well, you know what? Why don't you just put me on hold and you can finish what you're doing and then come back.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. And truthfully, because sitting there for even 5 minutes on hold, I can answer some emails. I can do whatever I need. they come back with a fresher, calmer mind because they're not trying to multitask, they're not feeling overwhelmed. And that goes way faster than if we struggled through it and I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to go to this.
What advice would you give somebody if they are having, yes, we have another little guest here. If they are having that type of reaction and the feeling of anger, what kind of tips would you say for them to not heal it, but start making it known and acknowledging it?
Sure. So there's a couple things. I even, I think an adrenal cleanse or detox is critical because we carry so much stress in our bodies and it stays there and it sits there and then it really becomes hard to manage because internally our biology is working against us at that point.
Yep.
So super easy. You could do, my favorite one is orange juice, a little bit of coconut water, collagen powder, and some like Celtic or Himalayan salt. I literally just make a pitcher and leave it in the fridge. And it's there always. And the kids can drink it. I can drink it. My husband never does, but he doesn't drink orange juice. But when you first do it, I suggest like 60 days, do it every day.
Would you say like a glass?
Yeah, like at least a glass. If you're really feeling stressed, maybe have a few more. And you're going to start to tell that your body is like shedding and detoxing some stuff. And that's good.
Yeah.
And then after that, just do it when you know things are coming up. Like when we go on vacation, I make it for on vacation because as much as vacation's supposed to be relaxing, it's not always.
It's not always.
Right?
Yes.
And it just kind of helps. I notice everybody that does it pretty well and they notice even just that changes. So I think that's the first piece. And then just also acknowledging, right? Like, hi, I'm Abby. I'm reactive.
Yeah.
And then, like, why? Sit with yourself a little bit. And you don't have to journal. Like, not everybody likes to journal.
Right.
You can doodle. You can just sit and think. But really, what is it that's causing the reactivity? What is behind that shield that you're worried someone is going to see? I think for most moms, with it just being Mother's Day, I always think of this comedian. She's super funny, but she was like, ladies, what were we doing? Telling them that we could do all these things. We had it so good. But really, women started working outside the home full time, but that didn't take the childcare, house care stuff off of most plates. So now they're working 2 full-time jobs instead of one. And then society has, and maybe that's, not their balance in their household either. It's more balance, but then society puts this expectation. When I go to a kid's event at my kid's school, I never hear anyone say, oh, why isn't dad here? But if mom doesn't show up, oh, where's mom? Do they not have a mom? What's good? Like, no, she's probably working.
Yeah.
Why is that expectation? So I think as moms, we can become reactive and defensive because we feel like we're always being judged, that we're not a good enough mom.
Yes.
And I think that's what comes down to for everyone. I'm not a good enough husband. I'm not a good enough provider. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm just not good enough.
Yeah. And when we get in our own minds continuously saying that, we begin to believe it.
Yeah, we create these narratives in our head. And I think that's what happens when we're silent, we're isolated in our struggle versus having even those 1 or 2 solid people that you can just say anything to. But talking out that narrative, sometimes I'll just say it to my friend and I'm like, I don't even need you to respond. I know how silly that sounds.
Yeah.
Like, of course that's not true. Why was I thinking? But in our head, it can just ruminate and run wild and drive us nuts. But saying it out loud or even just having somebody be like, I can understand where you're coming from, but that is not what I see.
Right.
Like, oh, really? That's not like, we think other people's perceptions are different because we're our own best critic.
Right. Do you think people don't sit with themselves and process their thoughts because of that?
Yes. Yes. Well, one, people don't do it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, that felt awful. Like, like we're just going to bury that down.
Yeah.
I'll deal with that later. I think of every time I do an in-service at a fire department, a military agency, a police station, anytime I'm like, please, please, please work on yourself now and process these things now and don't wait till retirement. Because the suicide rate, alcoholism rate, divorce rate, heart attack rate for newly retired military and first responders is astronomical.
Wow.
But part of it is they're carrying all of that junk for so long and not dealing with it. We think that burying it means our brain's not dealing with it either, but it is. It's like keeping it as like an open tab or an open app on our phone. How many open apps do you want in your brain?
Yeah, none.
Yeah, I don't want like any that I'm not
I
using.
have too many in my phone open. I don't need any more up here.
Absolutely, but it operates the same way. And then our body is still reacting to those because they're still operating. So it's still using power. It's still all of those things. It's really draining.
Yes. Do you feel that you're seeing a lot more of the younger generation from military and first responders, or is it kind of a balance between the retirees and the younger?
I think I'm seeing more middle-aged to retired, and I think I'm happy because I think that they're realizing what they were doing wasn't working,
right?
And they also have seen the generation before them, and they're like, "Whoa, I don't want that to be me."
Yeah.
So they're trying something different, and I think that has been very helpful. We don't see as much of the younger, but I think generationally they have a little bit more of that built in. I think the younger generation, if we probably align it, it's when schools started talking more about emotions and feelings and zones of regulation and all of those things. I think a lot more HR policies came into play in the workforce and just different.
She's all over.
So, and I think culturally, our younger generation, probably 20s, they just have a different set of priorities. Not all of them, but as a whole, we see a little bit more balance in their priorities. Right, they're getting married later, they're starting careers later, they're going out living life more. They have a bit more balance in some of that. They're more living to live and then working just to support that.
I do even find in the younger generation today that their spiritual connection is higher. I mean, I remember growing up and I didn't have as strong of a spiritual connection, but now, seeing these younger kids, they're in their mid-20s and they have a strong spiritual connection. And maybe it's just because I've surrounded myself with those individuals more, made it more known and present. So maybe that's why I'm recognizing that. And I feel it's kind of neat to see those who do have a stronger spiritual connection are a little bit more balanced.
So I actually had a conversation yesterday. It was a conversation about a conversation that person had with somebody else. And they had a discussion about how she thought that like internal manifestation and being intentional is the same as prayer. And the other person was like, well, no. Because internal manifestation or like manifestation is more selfish than prayer. And her response was, not always.
Yeah.
I can be manifesting that you have X, Y, and Z happen in your life, or sending great energy your way, or just intention and my thoughts. That's the same as asking God to provide or somehow or power to provide something good for you or to cover you or to whatever. So it was a very interesting conversation. And I think all is good. Whatever you practice is great. I think it causes us to be a little still and have some accountability.
Yes.
Like self-accountability and accountability to others.
Stillness is hard for our culture.
Yes.
For us to just sit presently within ourselves and be quiet. I think that it's hard because you're letting that inner critic come in. And it's almost like people have a hard time shoving that inner critic away and allowing those positive vibes, positive energy. I mean, just sitting in the sun, you know, for 5 minutes at peace, listening to nature around you. I think that's something that people are not allowing currently.
Absolutely. We live in
it's a little easier now that summer's coming. People don't want to sit outside in the winter. I don't mind it. I think it's very peaceful in the winter. And I think it's very pretty when it's a first snowfall. But summertime, obviously, easier.
Yes, summertime is easier. So this is when, we get more sunlight. The weather's greater. We definitely see people outside more. I think mental health and physical health is a lot better balanced in the summer. Living in Wisconsin like we do and have 8 months of not the best weather or really unpredictable weather sometimes can create for a really long series of moments for people. And when we talk about like self-care, I always use the wellness wheel, and I think we talked about that last time. And what I use out of my wellness wheel is not the same all the time, right? There are, in the summer, I can be more physically active and I can, do certain things. The winter, I have less opportunity. So then I might be relying on other skills or things to fill my cup. And we have to remember, that also changes not only your season to season, but our season to season, right? As our health changes, as we grow a family, as our career changes, as all these different things, we have to be adapting how we're taking care of ourselves.
Yes. I think, again, that goes along with the journey is always changing because there's really no destination. And when people put a destination on it, they stop learning, they stop evolving, they stop listening in to evolve and grow. So with that always ever changing, I think it's really important for people to understand that there's no end to the journey.
Which can be really discouraging for
some
people.
Yes. Especially if it's in the weight loss realm, but we're thinking outside of that.
But in general, I think some people, life is hard and they just get tired of it being hard and having to put in work. I think it gets easier. There's always going to have times that are hard or more challenging. But when we have those good habits and we just kind of inject them into our lifestyle, it is really easier. And, it could just be as simple as, adding a 10-minute walk on your lunch period or your lunch break or right after work. And it doesn't have to be outside. It could be around your house. If you work from home, it could be
the stairwell at work.
Yes, it could be so many things. And just that movement. Think of, being intentional about using the restroom multiple times a day and refilling your water. Like there's sometimes that I get to the end of the day, like I didn't even drink out of this water bottle that I carried around all day. Like, oh, that wasn't good.
I do remind a lot of clients that are in high stress jobs to not just go for a walk, but maybe they just need to sit away from their computer, sit away from their phone, and just be present with themselves and take some deep breaths. Absolutely. Because when our cortisol levels are high, are we thinking clearly? We're storing more fat, which most of us don't want to have more stored fat in our systems. And that's where that reactive personality trait comes forward. And it is hard for me even sometimes when I'm constantly going to take that moment. But I have to remind myself, even when it's just driving from one location to the next, you have peace. Turn the radio off and sit with yourself and think about not so much what's going to occur next, but think about what you can do for you in this moment in time. That's why I really like K-Love Radio, because K-Love Radio, it kind of helps guide you. It directs you. It helps you process thoughts, or it helps you think of that positive change.
Nice.
Like there was a moment in, a few years back where I kind of felt like I hit a rock bottom, and I turned on K-Love radio. I was going on a wine tour bus with girls, and the next morning my face was all puffy. My sister-in-law was on and she, like, I saw her, and she's one of my people. And I heard a song on their radio, and it was like, "Be ready for the comeback." And that was like an eye opener for me. Like, there's something greater out there for me.
Yeah.
There's something more that I need to do. And you may have not hit that moment, but there's always those little moments, I feel, that people miss out on when they're not within themselves, when they're not present with themselves.
Well, I think sometimes we get so focused on the destination and that we're not where we think we should be to hit that destination,
right?
That then we feel like we hit rock bottom because we're not where we should be. There's so much power in embracing each place that we are in and not trying to rush. I'm not saying don't put work in,
right.
But I think thinking back to all the things that I was disappointed in, angry at, the things that I thought were missed opportunities in my life, or didn't go, or failures, right? Like failed marriage, like, oh man, like this is awful. But it led to something greater because it just wasn't the time for that, or whatever. I had to learn this lesson. I had to be in a different place for that to be successful. My husband and I joke all the time that we needed to get other marriages out of the way to truly appreciate each other. Had we found each other earlier, one, we were probably not on the stage to be good together, but I don't know that I would appreciate him as much if I hadn't had not great relationships.
Right.
If I didn't have, not good jobs, what I appreciate when I have a good one and know what I have.
Right. I like when the door opens, you never know what's going to come out of it, right? And I think that's a fear of people. If you're not willing to learn from a mistake or learn from a failure or be open to that possibility, you're just shutting the door to allow for growth.
A lot of it, I think, is we don't trust ourselves.
Right.
Because when we open a door and we don't know what's behind it, we have to trust that we're going to be able to get through it. That we have the skills, the resources, the confidence, all these things to do it. Whether it is a success or a failure, we have that trust in ourselves. I think a lot of us don't have the trust in ourselves, so we have anxiety. We need to control it to feel safe. I think how many people, try to control everything around them in order to feel safe and comfortable, because it's the unknown that's really scary and causes anxiety.
What is something that you coach individuals on for kind of taking that step back and not having to control the things around you to help ease their anxiety?
So a lot of times it's, okay, have you ever faced a challenge like that before? Let's pick one. Have you ever faced a challenge similar to that before? If you have, okay, what skills did you have? Look, you made it through it. Did some of it suck? Probably. Or if it didn't go well, okay, great. What did you learn? What skills did you add? Look at how, it didn't go well and you're still here.
Right.
And things are great, right? Like challenging those thoughts, because I think we think when we can't control things and we don't know, and what if we, all the what ifs. Then we all of a sudden just count ourselves out versus being like, yeah, but I've got it. But it'll be okay. And sometimes it's, okay, well, if you take that risk, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then I always end with the best. Okay, but what is the best thing that could happen if you take that risk? So you could get that job, or you could not get that job. But, okay, is not getting that job the worst thing in the world? Or just the worst thing in that situation? Okay, but what are the wins that could come out of it? You practice interviewing on a huge panel of, high pressure people. You get the experience of this. You will learn about it, right? There's still wins.
Yes. And I think we maybe as society and our culture, we always focus on the negative. That's something we talked about last time is we're always thinking of the bad, we're thinking of the negative, the what ifs, but we're not really looking at the optimistic side of things. And yeah, I mean, depending on the situation, optimism may be good or bad. I'm usually the one that's always looking at the glass half full because I want to, and if something does go bad, I have to learn from it. That's the biggest output is we learn from it. But I think optimism is a trait that's not being utilized in many.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we're not optimistic about the future, then what are we doing? Then we're kind of just existing and going through the motions, and you can choose to make the best out of things. That's not to say that even as optimistic people, we can still get in not great places, internally, right? All those things. But again, sit in it, talk to it, kind of like, why? Like, where is this coming from? What am I afraid of? What the heck?
I say that quite a few times to myself. What am I doing?
I do that. Get your life together.
Yeah,
all the time. I say it to the dogs. I say it to myself. I say it to.
Yeah, there was this reels that I just watched the other day where this woman was running down the driveway and she tripped and she fell and she just lay there and she was like, "What in the world? Just let me lay here for a minute. Just leave me alone and let me lay here." And it just made me laugh because it's sometimes we fall and we have to think of the process of how we've gotten to that point and then pick ourselves back up, dust our hands and knees off and be like, all right, let's keep going.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, if we just lay there, we're not going to get anywhere in life. Right. It just made me laugh. Do you work with, and how do you coach somebody who's kind of living in a cycle of repeat?
Yeah.
Is that somebody who's not ready to make the change? How do you encourage those who aren't ready or don't have the desire to change?
Well, I think the first piece is to kind of
help them maybe acknowledge.
Yep, it's always establish rapport first. So we might spend a really long time for them to trust me, because ultimately it sounds like I need to get to a point where they're going to receive me challenging them a little bit of what's the worst thing that can happen if we step outside of this a little bit, as well as acknowledging the suck, right? Okay, do you want things to change or do you want it to stay feeling like this and rinse, cycle, repeat on whatever bad cycle that you're in? And a lot of it comes from fear. For an extreme example, we talk about individuals that are in abusive relationships and why they don't leave. And it's to everybody else, right? It's so obvious. Like, why wouldn't you just leave? You're worth so much more. You have all these skills and etc. But this suck, I understand. It's predictable. I know what to expect from it. It sucks, but it's comfortable. To step outside of this, I don't know what that suck is like. I don't know what the greatness is, but I'm really scared of the suck. Because what if it's worse than this? Or what if I fail at that? So there's a lot of fear of not being good enough.
Right. And that fear of good enough, I think that's something that people have engraved and have built in just maybe from, their youth, something traumatic happened in their younger years, constantly been saying that or told that.
I think throughout our society, and I don't want this to be political because I think it's literally just our society, but from all ends, we essentially are told we're not good enough, we're not you need to take all of these vaccines to save you from this because you doing your lifestyle is not going to, or you being careful. You have to get these grades to be good enough for this. You have to, and then we have all these other entities saying, you need me to survive.
Right.
Well, now we're creating a dependent culture, but we want everyone to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really
contradicting.
It is. It's really odd, and I think it's mixed messages
Right.
from all angles. And I think it's more about everybody trying to empower themselves. Knowledge is
Mm-hmm.
power, and I'm not saying that all vaccines are bad or that all, that getting good grades is bad, and to have those goals. But I don't know. I think we're about the same
Yeah.
age. Like in high school, it wasn't really an option. Like you were expected to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
The end. You need to get good grades to get into college. Whether you want to, you could really want to be an underwater basket weaver, but you still have to go to college.
Right.
Well, there's no degree for that, so why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just take some art classes and some diving classes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's just so silly. So these expectations get put on us, and then we internalize it, and then we don't.
Right. Yeah, I definitely like looking at ACTs and things like that. We all had to take ACTs, and I'm looking at some of these kids today and their scores where mine was an 18, and I and I was like, you know what? I made it through every class. I was a B student, C student. I never got straight A's. Maybe in middle school I did, but
Sure.
and it's like I'm okay with that because I'm always willing to learn. I'm never going to say no to an opportunity to learn from another individual or to build a relationship or try something new. Because if I say no, I'm shutting a door on something that I could possibly use in the future.
Yes, I think that there's so much. I mean, and finding that, and for me, it comes back to finding that balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pulling our kids out of school sometimes for really great experiences are better for us
Mm-hmm.
in our mind because we're giving them these experiences, this life experience, these skills to navigate things that the book and the classroom aren't going to. But also, yeah, absolutely, there's value to being
Mm-hmm.
in school,
Right.
C's get degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not everybody needs to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Trade schools are great.
Yes, they are.
And I think these days you can get, which sounds funny because I'm a professor, but I could easily find all of these amazing individuals and experts around the world that put on seminars, classes, and offer coaching and mentorship that I would value higher than a formal education.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that because I feel like those individuals that don't have all that higher education, they've gone through something in life from a learning experience and they've battled it, they've overcome it, they're still learning about it, and they're sharing that insight with other people. So kind of closing, we both just have additional appointments to get to, but we could go on and on about today's conversation. Everyone was great having Abby on. She's extremely knowledgeable in this, and I just love talking about this type of stuff, about how people can grow and become better versions of ourselves because we never want to stop. We never want to stop learning. Do you have any tips for them, for our viewers?
Well, I think in the honor of it starting to have nice weather, challenge yourself to sit outside and just 3 to 5 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe take off your shoes, feel the sun, and just, what do I hear? What do I smell? Close your eyes. Think about your breathing. How fast is my heart going? 3 to 5 minutes. Just be still and be present.
Love it. I love it. And I will encourage you as well to do all of that. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, just post them below. And don't forget to like, subscribe. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.